All right, what is up? Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new video here on the second channel. And today I've got my NAIC tier list video to talk about all the decks and where I think each deck is headed and positioned right now going into NAIC this weekend, the biggest tournament of the year. We got the brand new set coming out, some new archetypes in the format, some shakeups in the meta. I'm excited to talk about all that within today's video and break down, again, where I think each deck is on the tier list. If y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 24,000 subs here on the channel. And if you're going to enjoy the video, leave a like. I'll leave a link to the tier list down below in the description if you want to go check it out for yourself. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Let me know in the comments below where you think each deck is falling in the tier list. How accurate do you think I was? I'm interested to hear all that down below. All right. Starting off, we have Goldango Dragapult. This is probably the best way to play Goldango right now. Like, I think the other variants of Goldango are probably not as good as the Dragapult build. Now, I think Goldango is in an interesting spot because it's a lot worse than where it was in the Journey Together format, right? At like the beginning of the Journey Together meta, it was arguably like the top 3 deck in the format besides Pult and Guardy. But I think now in this new Destined Rivals meta, with some new scary decks getting popular, I think this deck probably falls down a peg. I would probably put Goldango in B tier. Dango Dragapult has been performing well in online tournaments. I think the deck is still fine. It's still good, but I wouldn't really call it one of the top 3 in the format anymore like it used to be. I think that it does face new challenges. I think its Grimmsnarl matchup is a little shaky. That Flareon matchup is pretty abysmal. You have a pretty rough matchup into Joltik, in my opinion. I also am not convinced on Raging Bolt either as a matchup. That one also seems kind of hard. But the good thing with Goldango, it still fares a pretty good time into both Dragapult and Gardevoir. Gardevoir especially is probably your best matchup overall, besides maybe Archaludon. But I wouldn't really call Archaludon like the most popular deck in the meta. Like, Gardevoir will still be popular at NAIC. So Goldango does beat 2 of the best decks. It beats Dragapult, it beats Gardevoir. That's pretty good. That's still a selling point about playing Dango Dragapult. My issue is you are gaining a lot more worse matchups. Again, stuff like the Grimmsnarl deck, a little shaky. Flareon is an abysmal matchup. Typhlosion's another deck that I would keep my eye out on. If Typhlosion gets popular, that's a bad matchup too. I think Raging Bolt is slightly unfavored. I think you do have a lot of unfavored matchups going into NEIC. It's a weird deck. It's weirdly positioned right now, but I do think it's B tier. It's not as strong as it was before. It's a lot less good of a play just because there's more awkward matchups in the meta right now. And with the meta being so wide open and so like split open right now for NEIC, we're kind of in that like undefined meta. There's just not enough space for Goldango to be like, this is the top 3 deck. So I would definitely put Goldango in B tier for now. Next up is the Grimmsnarl deck. This is probably the best new archetype to come out of Destined Rivals. I would probably put in A tier for sure. This is probably one of the best decks in the tournament, or in the format, I should say, going into the tournament. I think Grimmsnarl will be popular in NEIC. I don't know the percentage of like how big the deck will be overall by big players. Like, I'm sure it'll be a popular deck, but I mean, like, will the top players play Grimmsnarl? That's the main question, because top players like their Dragapult, they like their Gardevoir, some of them like their Goldango and their Raging Bolt, but the question is, are they going to play Grimmsnarl? I'm not sold on this yet. This deck definitely has felt good, and it is very strong. I think this deck is great. It has a good matchup in a Guardy, which is a big thing. Its Pult matchup isn't bad. I think this deck does have underlying weaknesses. Obviously, Grimmsnarl is not as consistent as other decks in the format. Also, you're a little shaky into Flareon. Joltik is a bad matchup. Raging Bolt is a bad matchup, too, in my opinion. There's all these like weird grass types in the format. Like Yanmega is another deck that's randomly popped out of nowhere. I don't think Yanmega is going to be popular, but you get my point, right? Like, Grimmsnarl has a target on its head for this tournament. So it's a very risky play if you don't build a good 60 that's consistent, but also has a game plan into its bad matchups. It's a pretty good deck, though, and I think it's definitely an A tier for sure. I think we're going to see a lot of Grimmsnarl at NEIC. The question is, are top players going to play it? Are top players going to do well with it? And is the deck going to have a chance of winning NEIC? All right, next up is Flareon. I would place this in the B tier also. I think I'd maybe place it above Goldango, just because Flareon has a better matchup into Goldango, but I also think Flareon is pretty good into Grimmsnarl, mainly because you just put a Leafeon EX in your deck, call it a day. You can also keep the Umbreon in the deck if you want to have a better time in a Gardevoir. I don't think Guardy is going to play Rabsca going into this tournament. I think Guardy's going to take out the Rabsca from the Henry Chow build, and they're going to put Shaman into the deck, which is better for Flareon because then you can actually use Sylveon against their Gardevoirs. You can't Sylveon with a Rabsca in play. So I think that Rabsca's going to fall off in popularity, so that's good for Flareon. Flareon's pretty good into Raging Bolt. It's good into Dragapult, in my opinion. You just have to be really good at the deck. Flareon is not a deck you can just pick up and do well with. It is a deck that requires a lot of skill to actually play correctly. It's a very hard deck to play. Like, I personally, going into NEIC, thought about bringing Flareon, but I ditched it immediately. I'm like, nah, bro, this deck is a headache to play. But it is a good deck. I think Flareon is a B tier deck for sure. It does lack consistency. It could lose to like Watchtower. I expect Dragapult to tech a Watchtower in their deck this weekend, which is bad for Flareon. That does make the matchup a little bit worse. I do think Gardevoir will cut the Rabsca, though, which is a good thing for Flareon. They don't really need to play Rabsca anymore because they got Shaman now, which is arguably a better card. So Flareon's good. It's a good deck, just not good enough to be an A tier. Next up is Typhlosion. This one's weird. I kind of want to put it in B tier because it does have potential, but I'm going to place it in C tier for now. I think the deck is underrated. I think it's good. We don't really know the best way to play it. That's the other issue. No one's figured out the best build of it. I think personally the Dragapult variant is the best way to play it, but there's been like the Dunsparce, there's builds with Victini, there's the Pidgeot we've seen going around. Goldango Typhlosion could be a thing. I think this deck is good. Again, nobody's figured out a good build for it yet. Also, I don't think this deck is that good into Dragapult and Gardevoir, or even honestly Grimmsnarl. This deck does struggle against the big stage 2 decks, which is a big issue. I know you can play things like Gravity Mountain and stuff to help fix the matchup, but I don't think Typhlosion is consistent and strong enough to keep up with decks like Gardevoir and even Dragapult. And definitely not Grimmsnarl. I think Grimmsnarl probably just farms Typhlosion. I don't know. I haven't put enough time in with the deck yet. I'm going to put it in C tier. It's not a deck that I don't expect like big players are going to play to the tournament. Like I don't think Andrew Hedrick's like, yo, I'm playing Typhlosion to NEIC. It's not happening. So C tier for sure. It is a good deck though. I will say this, it does beat a lot of the decks I'm going to be putting in the B tier. Next up is Joltik Box. Another B tier deck. I think this is another solid play for NEIC. Joltik has a good matchup into Grimmsnarl. It arguably has the best Grimmsnarl matchup out of any deck right now in the format, because you can play Pikachu, which one-shots them if they have to put a Frostlass down. Iron Hands is really good against Grimmsnarl, and then you can also play the Iron Leaves back in the deck, which is very good into Grimmsnarl, and then you also have Galvantula, if you still have that in the deck, to take out a Grimmsnarl in one hit. So Joltik Box is well positioned. If you want to play a deck that's going to beat Grimmsnarl, this is probably the best pick. Also, it's not bad into Dragapult, and it's not bad into Gardevoir. Now, we'll talk about why the Dragapult matchup could be a bit shaky. This is better into pure Dragapult, like the straight Dragapult deck with no ghosts, probably good, but then the Dusknoir build of Dragapult is a lot harder for Joltik to beat, and I actually think that deck might be more popular in NEIC. We'll talk about that actually in just a sec. So yeah, Joltik Box, I think, is a good B-tier deck. It's not a perfect deck, obviously. It's very straightforward, very, it's very simple, right? It doesn't really have much, like, leniency of what you can do. Like, your agency is not very good with the deck. It's very straightforward. Saying that, though, it's a good deck, and I will place it in B tier because it does have a good matchup in a Grimmsnarl. If you want to play a deck that beats Grimmsnarl, but also can probably just cheese wins because of how ridiculous building up an Iron Hands is in one turn is, definitely a deck you got to try out and play to NEIC. Next up is the Pult decks. Obviously, I'm going to put Dragapult in A tier. I don't have Dragapult classified as like I have it in one, like the Dusknoir build and then the Dusknoirless build of Pult. I think the Dusknoirless version of Dragapult is worse for this tournament because if you're playing no Ghost, you're going to struggle more into Gardevoir and Grimmsnarl, two decks that I expect to be extremely popular, so I would place Dragapult with Ghosts. I think the non-Ghost build legit might be more of a B-tier deck, but the Ghost build I like a lot. I think Ghost Dragapult is the way to go for this weekend. Dragapult's still good. Like, still Dragapult at the end of the day. It's still a deck that, even if it takes bad matchups into other good big decks right now, it's still a good deck, and it still beats people who don't know how to play against it well enough, or by somebody who's a very skilled player, right? That's the thing with Dragapult. You really get to show off your skill expression if you play this deck really well. So I think Dragapult is still A tier, still going to be very popular at NEIC. I think a lot of players who were just playing Dragapult for the past couple of formats now are just going to stick to it for NEIC. I don't think they're going to switch decks. So good chance this deck still ends up being the most played deck in the room. So definitely A tier for sure. Next up is Pulsard. This deck's pretty good too. I'd put it in B tier. I don't think it's as good as straight Dragapult with Dusknoir, but I think Pulsard's still solid. Your Charizard does help a lot against stuff like Gardevoir. Honestly, even Grimmsnarl, because Charizard could be a good way to clean up Grimmsnarls in one hit. It does have some shaky kind of situations it can get into, though. I don't think it has a good matchup into Goldango. The Flareon matchup is kind of hit or miss, too, if you're not playing Rabsca. And the Iron Hands Joltik matchup feels like a pretty bad matchup, too. Like, that one feels pretty hard. But you're better into, like, Raging Bull, which is a matchup that Dragapult will struggle against if you're not playing Shaman. Yeah, I mean, Charizard Pull's pretty good. I think it's a good B-tier deck. It's a pretty solid, straightforward deck. I think it's better than Typhlosion Dragapult. Like, if I were to play a Dragapult deck to this tournament, I would play the Charizard build over the Typhlosion build, though I think the Typhlosion build is still the better of the two decks. So yeah, I like Zard Pulled. I think it's good. I think it's a solid deck, B-tier for sure. Next up is Raging Bolt. I'm going to put that in A tier. I legit think Raging Bolt is a great play for this tournament. I think this deck is really, really strong. It does get a bit weaker because of Shaman. Part of what made the deck so good in the past format was that Baby Raging Bolt was a bonkers attacker because there's no bench barrier. So now that there's a Shaman in the format, and I fully expect Gardevoir and Dragapult and potentially Grimmsnarl to slot a Shaman into their deck, this deck gets a lot worse in that regard. But I think Raging Bolt is still a strong and powerful enough deck to be put in the A tier. I think it's the weakest of the decks in the A tier, but I think it is still an A tier deck regardless. I would put it a tier above everything in B tier. I think the deck is that strong for this tournament. I think it's still well positioned. It is a lot more different than it was before. It's not as, simple as the old version of Raging Bolt, right? You're not as, go fast, kaboom. You're more playing into the Noctowls, right? You're kind of playing like Terra Box to a degree. So Raging Bolt, still A tier. I think it is a very solid deck for this tournament. It's a bit weaker than it was before. I think Shaman cripples the deck a little bit, but still good. And nonetheless, I think it is still deserving of an A tier slot. Next up is Charizard Noctowl. Honestly, D tier. Like, if you're gonna play Charizard, honestly, just play the Dragapult variant. Also, same thing with Pidgeysard. I'm gonna put it in C tier because I don't think that actually, I don't even know if I want to put this deck in C tier. Honestly, this might just be D tier. Charizard Pidgeot just probably lose. Like, the two bills here, Charizard, just do not beat Grimmsnarl. Don't play it. Also, you don't beat Dragapult, especially because Dragapult just spams Budu against you. I think these variants of Charizard are just worse. If you're gonna play Charizard, I think you just play Dragapult Charizard. It is by far and away the best way to play the deck. So yeah. Also, Charizard Pidgeot is not as fast as it was before. It's a lot harder to pull off those stage 2 combos. I do like the Noctowl build of Charizard, but it falls harder to rare candy and stuff. Or Budu, sorry. So yeah, just play Zartpult. If you want to play Charizard this weekend, just literally play Zartpult. Next up is Yanmega. This deck's cool. I guess I'll place it in C tier. I think the deck is potentially good. Like Typhlosion, the deck is decent. It can win games. It beats Grimmsnarl pretty effectively, which I like. It does have Iron Hands, which is pretty good to have versus Pult and Guardy. The deck does lack damage, which is the only thing holding it back. I do like Yanmega. It's won a few online tournaments. I'll place it in C tier just for the fact that I want the deck to be good, but it would probably be like leaning towards D tier. I'm going to be honest with you. Next up is Enzoark. Oh, man. This is a deck that takes a huge hit with Destined Rivals because of Shaman. If Shaman wasn't out, I would say Zoroark was like a very good play for this tournament because I think it would beat Grimmsnarl, Dragapult, and Gardevoir. Mainly because you can beat Grimmsnarl by using Darmanitan, just taking out their Frost Lasses. And if they attack into Zoroark with Grimmsnarl, you just blow them up with Reshiram. Like, that matchup seems pretty free if you didn't have to deal with Shaman. Shaman kills Zoroark completely. Like, this deck is not unplayable, but it definitely feels like a pretty bad deck. Like, I would even place it in D tier, to be honest. Like, it's like that bad now. Also, you take rough matchups into like Flareon when they're playing Leafeon, and you never had a good Joltik matchup. That deck's still going to be very popular. Raging Bolt is like not bad either, but like you get carried by your Darmanitan. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, this deck definitely got a lot worse. It does feel like the Zoroark deck is almost dead now. It's just so bad with Shaman in the format. Like, if Shaman didn't exist, this deck would honestly be like B tier for sure. But because Shaman exists, you're going to struggle big time into the format. Now, I will say though, this is a deck that I actually don't think is ever going to be dead because I think there will come a point where Shaman starts getting cut from decks, which is good for this deck. If we see a point where, like, if there's a tournament coming up, I don't know, like, well, I guess if we have, let's say for Worlds, for example, if for the World Championships, all these lists getting popular don't have a Shaman in it, it's a good meta call to play Zoroark. This is a meta call deck now. This is no longer a pretty solid B tier play for any tournament like it was before. This deck is now just a meta call deck. It's going to go up and down. But I think because of Destined Rivals just releasing for NEIC, it's a bad time to play this deck. I think everyone's going to be playing Shaman. But if we start seeing big lists not play Shaman do well, all of a sudden this deck goes back up into B tier. It just relies heavily on where Shaman is in the format. Shaman is popular, this deck is completely useless. Shaman is not popular, this deck immediately becomes an insane play for a tournament. Just my opinion, anyways. I don't think Grimmsnarl will play Shaman. That's a deck that I do not think will play Shaman, but I 100% think Pult and Guardy will play Shaman. So that just, yeah, don't play it. Next up is Ho-Oh. I guess it's like Ho-Oh Macargo, Ho-Oh Armor Rouge. Probably C tier. Like, okay, everything in D tier, I'm going to say just do not play to this tournament. I should probably just, like, rename that in all honesty. Like, every deck I'm going to place in the D tier here is, like, how do I rename it? Yeah, I'm going to, like, D for don't play. Like, yeah. I'm going to place things in C tier that I think have potential to be good, but are not quite good. And I think that Ho-Oh is cool, but we'll have to see. I don't know. A lot of people are hyping up Ho-Oh Armor Rouge, and I have yet to try the deck. I might be making a video on it very soon on the channel, so keep your eye out for that. But I'm going to place Ho-Oh in C tier. The Ho-Oh Armor Rouge deck legit could be decent, but I don't think that deck will ever be, like, meta. But we'll see. Next up is Team Rocket's Mewtwo. Sadly, I got to place it in C tier. I think this deck is good, but maybe it's just not the right time to play it. I think it will be played at NEIC because people want to play the new decks, but I don't think it is a good play to NEIC, but I think people will play regardless because they want to play new decks. I think Mewtwo is a very mid deck right now. Also, we don't even know the best 60. Not great. I think if we get a better 60, if somebody does really well, like let's say Mewtwo makes top 32 at NEIC, boom, there you go. There's probably your blueprint for how to build a Mewtwo deck going forward. But right now, it's up in the air. It's kind of like Typhlosion. The deck has potential, but it's like worse than other decks above it. Like Mewtwo is like a worse Raging Bolt in my opinion. Raging Bolt is by far a better deck than Mewtwo, and it's like the same deck. Typhlosion's really strong, but Dragapult Charizard is by far a better deck than Typhlosion. That's my 2 cents anyways. Garchomp. Another C tier deck. I hate to put all these new decks in C tier because, like, I actually think they're good, but they're just not good right now, or they're not refined enough to be good enough. Like, the only decks that come close are probably Typhlosion and maybe Team Rocket, but Garchomp I like a lot. Once again, nobody's figured out the best list for it yet. C tier for sure. It's a good deck. Don't get me wrong. I think it's good. I think it's pretty strong. It does have I don't know if it beats Gardevoir, but I think it can beat Dragapult, and I think it probably maybe has a close matchup in a Grimmsnarl if you play power weights like in like a quantity of 3 of. Hopzation, don't play. I don't know. Like Hopzation doesn't really feel like there's a reason to play it. Also because now Shaman is a thing. That's another reason why Zacian is a lot worse. Like Shaman kind of hits the deck a little bit. If you're gonna play the Zacian, I think you just have to play it with like Archaludon or Metang. Because, like, there's really no way you're going to make that, like, Monkey Dory build work. I guess you could play Iron Valiant and try to, like, pick off the Shaman. But this deck does lose a lot of its value because you can no longer go... you can't snipe things for 30 damage. Which does, in my opinion, make a big enough difference for the deck to be in Don't Play. Also, the deck never was that good anyways. Like, just obvious D tier pick. Roaring Moon... Probably C tier. I think the deck was better for the previous format, but I think it takes a pretty bad Grimmsnarl matchup, which is not a good thing. I don't know if this deck really beats Grimmsnarl. It doesn't seem bad into Gardevoir. So if you want to play a deck that maybe beats Gardevoir, I would advise playing Roaring Moon. There's 2 different builds of the deck, I should probably say. There's the Dunsparce build, and then there's the Poison build. The Poison build did win the Bologna SPE, so... I mean, the deck did win a tournament recently, but that was past format. I think Poison Moon and Roaring Moon to Dunsparce are just mid plays overall. The Dunsparce build is probably the better variant, but I would still put it in. I would put them both in C tier. Like they're fine decks, but they're nothing too crazy. There's just better decks you can play, in my opinion. Next up, Frostlass. This is like Frostlass with no Grimmsnarl. Probably just D tier. Don't play. I mean, Grimmsnarl is just the better way to play Frostlass, in my opinion. The benefit of this deck, though, is that you do get to play a thicker line of Frostlass, and you get to play more into, like, the Devo strats. But you can really do everything this deck would do just by playing Grimmsnarl, even though you play less Frostlass. You kind of can do everything. You can still play the Maractus. You still have your Budews, right? You still have a big attacker. Plus, you get a Dark-type Pokemon, which greatly improves your Guardian matchups. Yeah, Frostlass, just don't play it. Just play Grimmsnarl. Next up, we got Blissey. Honestly... C tier. Another deck from past format that I think was actually underrated, but the issue with Blissey is that it's kind of clunky. I know there's like the new Centiskorch variant, which I do like. I think the Centiskorch does make the deck a lot better, and it fixes some of your worst matchups, but overall Blissey's kind of mid. Also, now that Dragapult might be playing Dusknoir again, that might be a bit worse for the deck. I think Blissey's cool, but I wouldn't really place it any higher than C tier. It's not a bad deck. It's not popular enough for me to be like, oh, this deck's broken for this tournament. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. C tier for sure. Sarah Ledge... the deck's okay. I don't know if I want to place it in C or D. I'll place it in D tier because, like, I think there's better decks you can play. Like, actually, if you want to play a deck like Sarah Ledge, just play Goldengo instead. I think Goldengo is a better deck than Sarah Ledge. Sarah Ledge, probably D tier. Cool deck, but I don't know. It seems kind of underwhelming right now, in my opinion. Archaludon, There's always a tough one. It's either B or C. I mean... I don't think the deck is bad. You still don't have a great matchup in a Gardevoir, and that's, like, kind of bad for the deck. We are seeing this, like, Venture Bomb Monkey Dory build get a lot more attention right now. I don't know if the Zoroark build is better than the other one. I mean, I think you probably beat Grimmsnarl, maybe. It's a weird one. I'm going to place it in C tier. I don't know. I think the deck is good. It's probably the best deck in C tier, I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, if I were to play any deck in C tier to NEIC... would probably pick Archaludon. I mean, the deck's cool, but I don't know, it's weird. That's a tough one. It does have some weak matchups, like Guardian and Goldengo are pretty abysmal. You probably beat Flareon, you probably can beat Raging Bull, you probably beat Joltik Box. Grimmsnarl, I think is okay. I mean, if you're playing like a heavy build with Turo, you probably beat it. Like if your Chowdown deck does have enough healing, it's winnable. I guess like the Zorak approach is a little bit worse though. Like Zorak, you're just gonna get devoed, right? But I don't know. Probably C tier, just because like it feels very like okay. It's like an okay deck. I don't know. That's my opinion. Next up is Terapagos D tier. This deck had its time to shine at the beginning of the last format, but I think this deck is like dead in the water now. The only deck you're maybe beating on this list is like maybe I don't even know, actually. This feels like an awful deck. Like, you don't beat Grimmsnarl now. Grimmsnarl just puts too much damage on your board. You definitely probably don't beat Dragapult. They're playing Dusknoir again, which I think they will. Raging Bolt seems like a pretty rough matchup. Gardevoir was never a good matchup. That's, like, obviously popular. Yeah, D tier for sure. Don't play Trapagos. This deck is, like, in my opinion, completely dead. There's no reason to play this deck. Next up is Guardy. Obviously going in A tier. Genuinely, Gardevoir might be the best deck for the tournament. I know Grimmsnarl is a new thing, but I don't think enough players are going to play Grimmsnarl to NAIC. Enough good players, anyways. Like, if you're playing Gardevoir, you can start the tournament off with, like, a 5-0, 4-0 record. You probably dodge Grimmsnarl. I don't think enough top players are going to be on the deck if you're going to be at top tables. Guardy's still a good deck. Also, it doesn't straight up lose to Grimmsnarl. It is still winnable. It's tough, but it's winnable, for sure. And you destroy Dragapult. Though, again, I think Dragapult is going to start playing Dusknoir for this tournament again, which is not good for Gardevoir. I think Gardevoir is still probably the best deck in the format. I think it'll be very popular. I also think a lot of big players are still going to play it, you know. So, pretty obvious A tier in my opinion, for sure. Still one of the best decks to beat in this tournament, for sure. Don't ignore this deck. Just because Grimmsnarl is a thing, don't ignore it. Next up is Terrabox. I mean, like, again, I don't play this deck. It's the same thing as Zorak in my opinion. This deck is going to go in and out of popularity where it's like everyone's going to be playing Shaman for this tournament. This deck loses a lot of its power with Shaman in the format. Shaman does kill the deck in my opinion. Completely, like, its value decreases a lot. I will say though, like, if Shaman didn't exist, this deck would probably beat Grimmsnarl pretty easily, right? So, unfortunately, I have to place it in D tier. It's like a cool deck, and it's still like okay. Like, it's not a bad deck, but it's like definitely gets so much worse now because Shaman is just, it ruins the deck. And then finally we have Walls. Walls doesn't feel great. Probably D tier because you never really beat Gardevoir. That matchup's always been awful. I think Grimmsnarl probably is not a good matchup either because they can just set up a bunch of like monkeys and Frostlass and like it seems unwinnable. You can use Crustle and Cornerstone, but I don't know. I don't know. You don't have a good matchup into Grimmsnarl. Also, now I think Dragapult, once again, will be putting the ghosts back in the deck. So you just don't really beat any decks and be A tier other than maybe Raging Bolt. But, like, I wouldn't really be like, oh, that's a big deal. So, yeah, but Walls is probably a D tier deck. 100%. I don't think Walls is the play for NAIC by the slightest. It's a good deck when it works and when you hit players who don't know what they're doing. But it doesn't beat 3 of the decks in A tier. So, like, don't bother playing it, in my opinion anyways. But, yeah, there you go, folks. That is my tier list for NAIC. The big 4 decks going in the tournament, I think, are Gardevoir, Grimmsnarl, Dragapult, Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt, like, borders on A and B, but I think it is still a very strong deck. Flareon, Joltik Box, I do think will be a little bit more popular for this tournament because more players are going to be on it. Goldengo, still good. Dragapult, Charizard, I think is the best way to play Charizard. Everything in C tier, I wouldn't be surprised if we have like an okay run in the tournament, but I don't think they're like the play or anything. Like, I'm not going to recommend somebody play these decks over anything above it, right? That makes any sense. But I wouldn't be surprised if any deck in C tier made top 32 or had like a decent finish at the tournament in general. It's 100% probably going to happen. So, I mean, in all honesty, we might even see one of these decks in C tier on stream at NAIC. There's a very good chance that does happen. But everything in B tier, I think, is just probably like, these are the 8 best decks for the tournament, in my opinion. Or at least the 8 decks to consider playing to this tournament, unless you want to have fun and play one of the decks in C tier. Or really do think that one of these decks in C tier is actually broken enough to bring it to the tournament. But there you go, folks. There's my tier list for NAIC. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a like. I'll leave a link to my tier list down below if you want to go try it for yourself. Let me know in the comment section below, what did you think of the tier list? Did I miss any decks that could have made the list? I don't think I did. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. I feel like if I did, though, it'd be like, okay, either C or D tier, probably. People like to comment, like, random, like, less than 1% decks to a tournament in the comment section. I'm like, cool, bro, your deck is probably D tier. Just my opinion. But I hope you all enjoyed. Catch you later. Bye-bye.